My name is James D. Schultz, and I was a torpedoman second class by the time I got out. I went right to the base, and that was the first time I saw the Bang, USS Bang. It was tied to the pier, and away we go. We get on the submarine, and you're a trainee, so they just don't put you right up there in the forward torpedo room. You're gonna start kind of doing some basic duties, which at the time was mess duty. You end up helping the chef with preparing food and stuff and this went on for a couple, 3 weeks. And the sub still hadn't left the pier, but it was eventually, we made our first trip out into the ocean. So I'm kind of new to all this, and it was interesting that they gave you important duties right away. After you do your little mess cook training there, that's the first thing you got to know is how to prepare food, because you could eat anytime you wanted, which is unlike surface ships. You had to go make it yourself if it was off hours, but they fed you every 4 hours. It was really good, and food was good, and but you didn't get much sleep. Sleep was a thing of the past for the next tour of your submarine life, because you were always training and learning all about the ship. So off we go. The first trip, we didn't go too far. We were out in, I recall going to the, just off of Cape Cod, maybe 300 or 400 miles off. And it was cold, and but we did a lot of, we were training with other ships at the time, and the one story I have about that experience, I recall exactly what happened. Is we had what I didn't really know what we were getting into, but the first time you dive a ship, you go down to 55 feet. That's where you go initially. And then you make sure everything's tight, no leaks, and then you can go deeper if you wish. So, but the plan is, you control the dive so you level out at 55 feet. We got down to 55 feet, and I was on, my job was to run what they call the bow planes, which are these big, almost like wings in the front of the bow of the ship. And you're got these big wheels here, and you're actually raising the bow planes or lowering them. But if you want to go up, you raise the bow planes. Well, there's an officer standing behind you, and he's telling you what to do. So we were supposed to go to 55 feet, but we just kept right on going down like a brick. So the officer behind me goes, full rise. He says, we got to go back up. So I'm got full rise in the bow planes. Guy next to me, full rise on the stern planes. We're still going down. I was a youngster, and you would never question an officer. I mean, you just expect they know what they're doing. And I didn't know what was going wrong at the time. And it just turned out that the captain came in and just do an emergency blow and blow all the tanks. And you will eventually start coming back up. The problem with that then is now you're really coming up because you're coming up like a cork, and that's really not a controlled surface process. But yeah, it was, at the time I'm not sure I knew what was going on. Probably would have rode it to the bottom, not knowing what was going on. But I did have my bow planes on full rise, so it didn't help. We went past 55. We're past 100. We're going down to 150. And the officer behind me, I had hoped he would start saying something. But the captain came into the control room there, and he said, we'll blow all the ballast tanks. Let's go back up as fast as we can. So we eventually went back up. But instead of stopping at 55 feet, we went to 250. And that was the first time I said to myself, maybe this wasn't a good idea. When you submerge the ship, it's actually, you're looking for a certain level of buoyancy And it's, if you're too heavy, because some of your ballast tanks are flooded, or the water tanks inside of the ship are flooded, you will go down like a brick. You're sinking. So they calculate the weight of the ship before you submerge. And the way they do that, they look at all the, how much fresh water, for example. You have, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 gallons of fresh water in the bow, and you'll have oil and other fluids inside the ship, and that ought not. You've got torpedoes; those things weigh 3,000 pounds apiece, and you've got 16 up front, and I think it was 8 in the back, in the stern. So you got to know what the weight of the ship is. Well, it turns out the young officer behind me didn't know they made like 4,000 gallons of fresh water, which you can make yourself right on the ship. They have stills, and it was in the bow, and down you go, 4,000 gallons. That's probably 6 pounds a gallon, and what is that? Quite a bit of weight, so 24,000 pounds. So anyway, you got to know that and calculate it properly. So anyway, it wasn't done right. So I'm sure the captain took him in his stateroom and gave him a lecture, but you know that those kinds of things you don't hear about, the repercussions. It's not good form to reprimand somebody in front of the crew. But anyway, that was one unusual experience.